Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to yet another edition of Loot for Beginners. Now, in the first video, I kind of touched on, the different stores that sell, loot that I like to get. And then I touched on how hard it is to get some things, and I touched on, like, how many different, bots are made by different companies, how, when you have 4 or 5 in there, you pretty much got you can choose from whichever. And then I touched on the fact that there's only a couple of companies that have one bot, or maybe even only one company that's made a certain bot. And I mentioned pricing, and that I was going to show off some fans toys. Now I was planning on saving just strictly Legends for a secondary video. But since I forgot to show those other two things in the interest of keeping the video short, I think I'll start this video with those and then show off some Legends stuff. I'll show some pictures of some new stuff that's coming out and some from my personal collection, because I do take pictures of all my bots. Now, when it comes to high end, I guess, well, the pricing is different for every company. Like X-Trans bots and certain others are usually reasonably priced, anywhere between $50 to $100. Now, when you get into fans toys, which I'm going to touch on in the next segment, fans toys is generally considered, well, I'll just go with my opinion. I consider it sort of top of the heap, because they're the ones that throw on all the good looks, all the paint, but they also charge a very high price for some of their stuff. And I'll touch on I'll show some of the ones that I have, some of the ones that I've pre-ordered, and some of the ones I'd like to have, and then some that are just coming up. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into it. Now this, ladies and gentlemen, is fans toys, sort of the top of the heap. These are usually the high-end, high-priced. They're just, they're really good. They're really good about having the robot mode and the vehicle mode usually fairly spot on in some cases. In some cases, one mode might suffer a little bit, but generally, that I've seen, now from the ones I have, generally they do a really good job, but they are high priced. These are the ones that if you want to work your butt off, you can afford them. Or if you've just got a lot of money laying around, but the problem is, as with a lot of third-party companies, they're sort of limited in the number they have. I think they're up to where they've announced up to like FT40, I want to say 4 or 5, probably more, because I haven't really looked into it that hard. But I'll just go in sort of what the order I've just got them in my folder. So here we are. We have Fans Toys Apache, which I introduced you to the other day, showing you that several different companies. But he is, for Springer, he's really good looking, and his 2 different modes are really nice. He's sort of the high end of the spectrum. Like I said, I went for the open play, but that was personal choice. That was because I looked at him, Saltus, and Virtus, the 3 that were, available, or gonna be available. And I was just like, Springer wasn't really that big of a favorite, so I'll just go with a Springer. And open plays was cheap. I'd seen reviews on it. It looked good to me. I've heard people put him down, but he's gonna look good enough on my shelf, and I'll be proud to have him there. So whatever. Then you have Fans Toys Phoenix. Now this is one of those SOBs that is hard to get a hold of. I mean, like hard. they just recently reissued Phoenix. And I was like, oh, well, here, I'll put him in my pre-order list and I'll pay for it Friday. No, next day they were gone, just gone. All sold out everywhere. So I still need a Skyfire, which I may have to just go with the one from the Hasbro Siege line because he looks good and he's masterpiece sized. I might do the same thing with Omega Supreme, but don't tell anybody. Anyway, next we have Fans Toys Sovereign. He is their version of Galvatron. He looks darn good. As far as Galvatrons go, there's been a few. I got open and play again for him just because Galvatron's, his alt mode stinks. It always has. I mean, I understand they were trying to make him more powerful by making him his own gun instead of having to be held by another Decepticon. They just made him a giant cannon and just was done with it. But really, he's not really one of those I'm concerned with. The open play looks good to me. I mean, I could stand to throw some orange paint on his gun barrel because it's clear, and I don't really like that. But other than that, it's Galvatron. I mean, just as long as he's there, I don't really care. I may at some point try to pick up another one, but if I had my choice, it would be Fans Toys Sovereign. And since he's really hard to get a hold of without paying an arm and a leg, open and play was the next best thing. Then we have one that I actually do have on pre-order. This is Fans Toys Jabber. Now, Jabber is of course Blur, and he's the one coming out. I've already pre-ordered him. He was supposed to have been out like right around now, but they keep pushing back his release date, so I'll get him when I get him. He's on order with Fans Toys Maverick, their version of Silverbolt from the Aerial Bots. I'll get it when I get it. I'm not that worried about it. Then the next two I already have, which is Fans Toys FT31A Road King and FT24 Rouge. Yes, it's Rouge, not Rogue. People keep mispronouncing it. And I understand why, because everybody's big on Rogue from the X-Men, but Rouge is sort of like a French word for, I guess, makeup or something. I don't know. Rouge is also like red in French, so who knows? Who cares? It's RC, one of my favorite characters, and I do have that one. I also have the add-on that Den Toys put out, but that's another subject I'll get into a little bit later in this video. Then we have one that's coming out that I'm looking forward to. The one that made me decide not to buy Bad Cube's version. It is Fans Toys Sheridan FT41. Now that, ladies and gentlemen, is Warpath. He's got the right look. Now War Dog, he looks a little too bulky, a little too stocky. But Sheridan actually nails the look. And yeah, I'm a big fan of the cartoons. But yeah, he's definitely one that's on my list to be pre-ordered. So there's another one in this list. I'll get to that in a minute. Now they are also re-releasing this next one, Fans Toys Terminus Giganticus FT20 Omega Supreme. He is roughly $360, folks, and he's like 2 feet tall or somewhere thereabouts. And I think I'm tempted to get him. I really like Fans Toys, but yeah, just for the aesthetic. But the Siege line's coming out with one that's the same height for $159. So I've got time to think about it. He's not coming out for another month or two, supposedly. That's another thing you got to watch out for, is when they say a release date, it could get pushed back, because all the companies that are making these, especially Fans Toys, are in China. So there's a possibility they'll get pushed way back. And then there's this one. Oof, I can't wait for this one. It's Fans Toys FT44 Thomas. Yes, I get the reference, Thomas the Tank Engine. That is their version of Astro Train, and ooh, boy, does he look good. I mean, he looks like Astro Train, which is that's the hard part with a lot of these companies. Now there have been other Astro trains. I think DX9 put out Chigger, and yeah, that's supposed to be the sound that a train makes. Chigger, 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 chigger. Whatever. Thomas, I think, is a hell of a lot funnier. And then another company, I forget which company put him out, but was called Evilla Star, and that was another version of Astro Train. But this one looks really good, and Fans Toys does have some pain in the butt transformations, I will not lie. Some of them aren't as much of a pain in the butt as you might think. Some of them it's just a matter of you just have to get everything lined up correctly. You have to get the stars to align correctly to get it fully transformed. And that's the trick, really, to Fans Toys, is everything has to be just so to actually get it to work and transform. So that's one of the biggest things to watch out for with Fans Toys. Now, that's true of a lot of third-party manufacturers, too. Of course, the pain in the butt transformations are sort of the price you pay for that much paint, that much articulation, and to get them to look as spot on as they can look without, you know, being like the Hasbro versions, just goofy looking. I'm thinking about getting Hasbro's, you know, Skyfire and their Omega Supreme, so they can't be that goofy, but the Siege line is where they're actually seeming like they're kind of trying a little bit better. Maybe they're trying to, but I'm not thrilled with the Siege line. I've seen most of the bots. Skyfire and Omega Supreme are the only two I'm considering, just because I do need Masterpiece size bots for them, and they do seem to fit the bill. So, but Fans Toys is definitely a company to consider if you have the money for it. If you don't have the money for it, I'd say try to stick with companies like X-Trans Bots or, you know, stick with like X-Trans Bots, Bad Cube, because like the steamroll side swipe that I got from Bad Cube was like $86 and some change. So they're not that horribly priced. Their Red Alert was like 83 something. I'm not sure. I think Bad Cube's gone out of business or kind of disappeared. So it's kind of grab as grab can with what's left. But I don't think they're quite that popular with the more experienced collectors. Of course, there's a lot of experienced collectors who hate Fans Toys for whatever stinking reason. I'm just like, well, I like the way they look and I can kind of afford them, and they look great on a shelf, so bleh. It's a personal choice, to be honest with you. So that is Fans Toys, and now we will move on to the topic of pricing. Now, when it comes to pricing, you have to be careful, because this hobby will eat your wallet like Unicron on a binge. It will seriously wreck your finances. Trust me, I know, because I've been there. I've been in that spot where it's like I've got all these pre-orders that are coming up soon, or I thought, because, you know, like I say, sometimes they don't come out exactly when they say they are. A lot of it's guesswork with the pre-orders, but that's not the topic I'm talking about. It's the pricing. Now, like I said, Fans Toys is sort of the high-end, high-priced, mostly. You do get other bots and other companies that are pretty out there, like X-Trans Bots. I bought their version of Scourge. It's Andrus, I believe, who's named after a demon, legendary demon. That's their version of Scourge. And as you can see, he's good looking enough. He's a pain in the butt to transform, but that's X-Trans Bots. So same with Fans Toys. Same with a lot of them, really. But like I said, sometimes you got to sacrifice the transformation being a pain in the butt to actually get a good looking bot. The engineering's amazing, so I can't gripe about it. But I think that very engineering is part and parcel of why they have such a high price. I've heard people talk about paint, parts count, and all these other factors that go into making these things so expensive. It could be. It could just be, you know, because you got a few examples right down through here of the kind of prices you can expect to pay. These are prices that I have paid for bots that I've bought. You know, I've got an example of each of the of a few of the ones I bought from different companies. So you're looking at least $50 baseline, you know, 55 to and up baseline for these. Now, if we look over here, these are some of the Legends figures that I've bought. And as you can see, the prices are a little more reasonable if you don't mind the teeny weeny little bots, to be honest with you. And that's sort of the beauty of the Legends. They are small, but you could count them as a mini masterpiece because they have the articulation, they have the color and the paint, I guess you could say. They look good. They're highly you know, like I said, they got the articulation. They're highly posable. They look really good, and they'll save you not only money, but they'll save you room in your home. And a bonus of the smaller bots is if you want to incorporate the city bots like Tripticon, Metroplex, Fortress Maximus, excuse me, I had a brain fart, and Scorponok. If you want to incorporate them into your collection and actually have them scale properly, look like they're the right size, Legends is definitely a way to go. Now you could put them, you could make like a giant sort of coffee table terrarium thing in the corner of your house and just create a battlefield. You can go with a Cybertronian look for it as a display. You could go with Earth. Now you got the city bots are like 2 feet tall, usually about 2.5 feet tall. But because the Legends bots are so tiny and they're fully transformable, fully posable, and they look really, really good, these are ones you might want to go with just to kind of save room and save money. Because really, I think the highest price one that I've bought was Iron Factory's Tyrant. You can see him right down there. He was about $65 to $70, but he comes with a boatload of accessories. Now, if you're into IDW Comics versions, Iron Factory is the way to go. But Iron Factory did add in with Tyrant a set that makes him look like G1 Megatron. So he can fit in with your Legends collection and not be too far off. A lot of the Iron Factory bots can fit in with your collection and look good. I mean, you can skip around to different companies. I may even do another Loot of Tomorrow soon because there's a lot of Legends stuff coming out and a lot of other bots, and I only did like six or seven of like, let's say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, about 7 of them in the last video, even though 3 of them were sort of a set and 2 of them were coming out at the same time. But that, as far as Legends go, I love them. I mean, they're really, really wee tiny. I can put my masterpiece on a big shelf, on different shelves, and make dioramas for them. But with Legends, I can actually, like I said, I could lay out like a nice big table in the corner of the room and sort of build like a diorama battlefield and just stand them all on there, posing them with their guns ablazing. And I can have fun with it. So can you. So Legends is something to consider if you like collecting Transformers, but you don't have a whole lot of room and you can't just blow a whole lot of money. So that's something to think about too. But as far as pricing goes, that's pretty much it. On to the next one. Now, in Loot for Beginners, it is supposed to be kind of for beginners, but this is sort of more of an advanced topic. So, but I'll get into it anyway, because the faster you learn about it, the more you know, the more you can look into. So, one thing that you can find on sites, TF Source, Chosen Prime, you can even find a lot of them on eBay. There are companies out there like KFC, Dr. Wu, and DNA Designs. Those are just 3 of the companies I've heard of that have these things. Add-ons. Add-ons are things like posable hands for your masterpiece collection, or upgrade kits for, you know, certain bots you have. These are just a few examples from KFC and DNA Designs. I just snapped these screenshots straight from TF Source because they're the only ones that I know of right this second that actually have a category you can look through specifically for add-ons. But now, I have bought a few. Like, here's one. Here's a picture of my masterpiece tracks with the posable hands. You know, I can make him do the devil horns, or I can make him do the shocker, or whatever. Just whatever you can do with posable hands. Now, one problem with the posable hands is some of, like, Fans Toys, they just make posable hands on a lot of their bots now. I don't think they always had those. Of course, I don't have enough of their older bots to know for sure. But, you know, like, it's nice to be able to, you know, like, pose a hand where it's, you know, like, where the fingers are bent at different angles, you know, or you can kind of, you know, manipulate the hand. You know, a lot of them, they just kind of come with what they call the typewriter fingers, where their hand just forms like a C. That can be fine, but it's nice to, you know, I mean, yeah, they do them like that so you can stick the gun in their hand and then just close the fingers. Some of them will come with just the index finger, you know, separate. But it is nice. Like, I got the posable hands for tracks, as you can see. I also got them for my MP22 Ultra Magnus. Now, that just made his hands that much better. And it doesn't mess with the transformation. Now, KFC, all of their bots automatically come with the posable hands, like Ditka here. He came with the posable hands, and so, you know, so did my, you know, Transistor, which is their version of Blaster. I don't think I have a picture of him with his hands posed, but that's a picture I'll show off later. I'll even show him off on an episode of the Loot Crate sooner or later. But the problem with the KFC hands is a lot of them have a really teeny weeny ball joint in the main knuckle that connects to the hand, and those are really fragile. Now, it's nice to have the posable hands, though. I will give it that. And like some of them you really kind of need posable hands for. Like, I haven't found any for my Megatron MP36, but for right now, you know, he's good with just, you know, one hand closed in a fist and the other hand, you know, aiming his blaster like her, you know. But they also make add-ons like this, the English version of Megatron's blaster, because anybody who has MP36 knows that when you push the little button, he has the pew 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 sounds, but he also has a voice chip in there. And when you flip it, he starts speaking in Japanese. I don't speak Japanese, and their Japanese voice actor does not sound like Frank Welker, pardon my French. But hey, the Japanese version, it's made in Japan, so there's only so much you can gripe about that. But at the same time, it is nice. If it would have been nice if they would have made an English version. I don't know if I would want them to make a Dutch version, because I have heard Dutch Starscream and my heart was not prepared for that. So, but then you also have like upgrade kits, you know, or some of them even make other accessories like this one, the cage for Ravage to be put in, for a Masterpiece Ravage to be put in, just that thing from that episode. But it does make a great accessory if you want to sort of recreate that scene on a shelf somewhere. Just put Ravage in the little cage and have him pawing for the key or something like that. But, you know, it's things like that. Like, I also have a set of KFC's Energon cubes. You know, you can see them in the picture down here. Those Energon cubes are pretty nice, I will admit. You get a set of 6. You get 2 of them that look like the compressed Energon cubes, 2 of them that are just straight up cubes, and then 2 where the stuff inside is waved up into a corner where you can recreate the scene where the Decepticons were getting drunk on Energon. So there's that. So add-ons are definitely a fun thing to have. Some bots come with those kind of accessories, some don't. So it's really a matter of, okay, you know, I want as many of them with posable hands as I can get. Now the only downside to this is I have the posable hands for my MP12 Sideswipe. What I do not have is posable hands for my Steamroll, which I'll be replacing them with. So when I get home, I'll have to check and see if those will fit Steamroll, because they both work on, both of them have their wrists set on a mushroom peg, which that's something you'll notice as you mess with your bots, because like the reason you can turn their wrists around is because the hand is slid over a little peg, like they call it a mushroom peg. It's got the skinny middle, and then it comes out, spreads out into the wrist. So that's why, but you can't really. And some of them, like Fans Toys Quietus is one I have. He has wrists that can flop back and forth like that. It's a bit of a pain in the butt, but he also has fully posable fingers. Well, not fully. He can't really spread his hands out, you know, wide. But he can, like, you can articulate all of his fingers. But that's something to think about. It's not an important thing, but for those of you who out there who do like that sort of thing, it is available. Now it's kind of suffers from the same availability issue that the bots themselves do. So it's one of those where you just kind of have to pick and choose as you go along. But usually they're pretty inexpensive. Like I think a set of the posable hands usually goes anywhere from $18 to $20, and that's even on eBay. So those aren't really that hard to find. The only problem is just, you know, trying to get hands for all of them. Like I think Ratchet and Ironhide both have a set of posable hands, but I haven't really found any posable hands, not yet, for Red Alert. Of course, I'm getting, you know, Bad Cube's version of Red Alert 2 Recon, so I may not even need the posable hands. I'll have to see if Sideswipe's hands fit Steamroll and they still fully posable and don't interfere with his transformation. Then I'll look into getting a set for, you know, Security Director Recon. But there you go. That's another thing to look into. Like, I mean, they range anywhere from posable hands to replaceable heads, where you can get a replacement head for some of your Optimus Prime figures that actually have the light up LED eyes, whereas the original head that came with it does not have that feature. So it's something to think about. For a beginner, that's kind of, like I say, that's a little advanced. That's something you want to look into after you've started a little collection and kind of know which way you're going, because can definitely blow a lot of money if you're not careful on the add-ons and things, and then you're going to decide you want to replace, you know, this one with a different one. So just be careful with that. Don't spend, you know, make sure you're locked in and focused on what you want to buy before you buy, because like I said, I got, if it hadn't been for the fact that my actual, you know, official Sideswipe was so cheap, I probably wouldn't have bought Bad Cube's Steamroll. But it was the fact that he was cheap enough to buy, and then the fact that he is very loose. His shoulders don't lock in right. His head won't stay up. That's why I got the Bad Cube version. So that's something to keep in mind, because you don't want to be blowing too much money before you get what you really want. So that's pretty much it for the add-ons. We'll go to the final thoughts from here, and I'll give you some pointers there too, some fairly important ones. Now, here are some very important recommendations. One thing you want to do is definitely watch reviewers and people who just talk about collecting, because you'll pick up some pointers just just watching them, you'll pick up more pointers by accident than I'll remember to tell you in any of these videos. My recommended ones, personally, I like Bobby Skullface. I'm sorry if I'm butchering this, but his name's either Peaugh or Peaugh. I have no idea. Peaugh. I'm sorry if you watched this and I butchered your name, but I don't know how to pronounce it. Then, if you're more into sort of a, somebody who just does all around, Bobby Skullface and Peaugh do that too, but they have a lot of videos on third-party Transformers and Legends stuff. Now, where you really want to go if you're looking into collecting more of an assortment, that would be Baltmatrix. I would suggest him. If you like other stuff other than Transformers, there's Tydirium Hangar. He's a good one to watch. And Ben's Collectibles. He's British, but I'll forgive him because he is the one that told me about the Lewin Atlas, which I have, the 2-foot something Optimus Prime that I've got, which I will try to show off in another Loot Crate video, but I don't think he'll fit. I don't think he'll fit on the turntable, so I just may have to record him just standing there. But those are the ones that I watch the most. There's also, there's a lot of other ones like Peaugh for Life. God, I can't remember. TMReviews, I think. TMReviews, something like that. I'm sorry if I butchered that, but you know who you are. And so just look around on YouTube for those guys. They've been at this for a long time. I'm still a beginner myself. I've been in this for a year. Well, coming up with this coming Heroes Con, it'll technically be a year. I mean, even though it's a weekend before, like a week or two before last year's Hero Con was, which I think it was on the 22nd, 23rd, and 24th last year or something like that. And this year it's on the 14th, 15th, and 16th. So it'll be close to a year when I go back to Heroes Con, where I got back into collecting the Transformers. But this is a lot of the stuff that I've learned since then. Hopefully it'll help you out. And hopefully you got enough information out of this to make a really good go at it. So this has been Loot for Beginners. There may be a part 3 if I think of anything else. There may be a part 3 if somebody else thinks of something else. Ask questions in the comments. Leave me, like, share, and subscribe. If you know anybody else who's into Transformers, throw them these videos too. Maybe they'll get a kick out of it. Maybe they'll learn something. Who knows? The more people I've got to talk about Transformers with, the better I'll like it. And that's what the Loot Crate is for, is because I don't have anybody to show off my collection to, so I show it to you. Even though all 20 or so of you that consistently watch this. So I'm just doing this for the fun of it. Hopefully you're having fun with it too, and I will see you next time.